once again, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to have you back for another episode of TST. Andrew Rogers, your host, creator, and man behind the screen, I guess, or in front of the screen, if you will. I do a bit of both on both sides there. I do the editing and all that other stuff and produce these fine graphics that you see before you, and also I'm the on-air talent. So very excited about this week's episode. We got a lot to cover. We're going to continue our talk about the WOAA Senior AA Men's League. The final has been set in the AA division. It'll feature the Clinton Radars and the Durham Thundercats. We'll talk more about that in that segment coming up here shortly. We will also talk and get you teed up for the next game in the Tavistock Petrolia A final of the WOAA. We also have an interview from Durham Thundercat General Manager Don Tremble. He joins us in our segment, and we had a conversation with him this past week, so we're going to play that for you. It was a very good interview. He's a very good person to talk to and provided us some insight going into the AA finals. So that's all coming up in the WOAA segment, part of our show today. We're also going to talk about the Ontario Hockey League. We're into the final stretch. The Owen Sound Attack had a very good week last week. They went 3 for 3, 3 games, 3 wins, and they have 3 more games on the schedule. They trail the London Knights by 2 points. We'll get into that in the Ontario Hockey League segment of our show. That also features a couple of interviews, a couple from 2 different teams, actually. We have the play-by-play man of the Kitchener Rangers on the 570 News Network on the AM dial. Mike Farwell joins the TST today, as well as Fred Wallace, the voice of the Owen Sound Attack, the PA announcer in the Bayshore. He also does the play-by-play on the road for 560 CFOS. He will join us as well. We'll talk attack, we'll talk the Rangers, and we're also going to talk just about the Ontario Hockey League in general, because playoffs are right around the corner. We are in the final week of the Ontario Hockey League regular season. All 16 teams that are qualifiable for the playoffs have qualified. So we know all 16 teams that are going to be there. There are some seeding issues that we still need to sort out over this next week. Everything will be decided by the time TST puts out an episode next week. So we'll do a full playoff preview of all the matchups next week. Very excited about that. In our OHL segment, we're also going to talk about the NHL. Why not? The Toronto Maple Leafs, they only had the 1 game this past week. They got 3 more on the schedule for this upcoming week, starting tomorrow against the Dallas Stars at the Air Canada Centre. We want to get you up to speed as to where the Maple Leafs fall in the division. We want to give you an idea of what's going on there, who they'll potentially face. We'll recap the game that was, and we'll tee up for the next 3 coming up. As we get into the stretch drive here, the Toronto Maple Leafs have 14 games remaining on the schedule. They have they've played the most games out of everybody in the NHL, a lot more than most other teams, but the season is concluding shortly, and the playoffs are on the horizon, and that's when things will get really, really interesting. The so-called second season in the National Hockey League will start soon with the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. We're also going to talk about the Toronto Raptors and the NBA report. The Raptors clinching. They are the only team in the Eastern Conference to clinch a playoff spot. We had 2 teams clinch playoff spots in the Western Conference, the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. Toronto had a very productive week last week. We'll get you caught up to speed on that, give you an idea of where the standings shake out, the potential matchups for the Toronto Raptors, where they might, who they might face in the first round, and so on and so forth. We'll get you teed up for the week upcoming. Finally, we want to talk about golf. Yes, that's right, golf. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but you know what? I get out occasionally. I don't play all that well when it comes to golf, but I do enjoy it because it's good to get out, enjoy the nice weather, have a couple brown sodas, and pretend like I'm Tiger Woods. On the golf course, I mean. But anyways, this past weekend was the Valspar Championship in Palm Harbor, Florida, and a Canadian led for 3 rounds of the tournament. We'll have All that and more, plus an exciting interview with Brenden Parsons. He's the Director of Operations for Listowel Golf Club. He has a little bit of insight into the life of Corey Connors, who stole the hearts of Canadian golfers this past weekend at the Valspar Championship. We'll get into all of that and more on this week's episode of TST. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back to kick off our show with the WOAA report. We'll be right back. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. So the first segment of our show covers the WOAA and the Senior AA Men's League that features your Saugon Shores Winterhawks, although they were out 2 rounds ago. We did, over the past week, though, crown and find out who was going to make up our championship in the AA division. The first series was the Clinton Radars and the Tillsonburg Thunder. It had the Clinton Radars defeating the Tillsonburg Thunder in this series by a score of 4-2. Clinton taking games 5 by a score of 6-0 and game 6 by a score of 5-0 to upend the Tillsonburg Thunder, the number 4 seed. Like I said, series win by the Clinton Radars, 4-2. They move on to try and three-peat. They've won the Senior AA Men's League Championship 2 years running, and they are putting a serious dent into the potential for them to get a third. They look very strong and very formidable. Our other series saw the Ripley Wolves and the Durham Thundercats, a matchup of 2 versus 3. It's Durham coming out on top in this one. The number 3 seed advances to their to the WOA Senior AA Championship, where they will take on Clinton with a 5-4 victory in game number 5 to seal the series. They win the series 4-1. Like I said, that sets up our matchup in the championship between the number 1 seeded Clinton Radars. They went 20-0 in the regular season. They've gone 8-2 so far in the playoffs, whereas the Durham Thundercats went 16-4 to finish third, and they've gone 8-1 so far in the playoffs. Thus far, it should be a fantastic matchup. Here's how this series will shake out as we know today. Game 1 will go Friday, March the 16th in Clinton at 8:30. Game 2 goes Saturday, March 17th in Durham at 4. Friday, March the 23rd has Game 3 in Clinton at 8:30. Game 4 will go Saturday, March 24th in Durham. That's a 1:30 start. Game number 5 would then go Friday, March the 30th, if necessary, in Clinton at 8:30. Game number 6 is to be determined, but it will be in Durham. And Game 7 is also to be determined. That'll be in Clinton should the series go a full 7 games. Finally, so like I was saying earlier, we do have an exciting interview now. We talked last week with Durham Thundercats General Manager Don Tremble.
No, that was good. It was really. I thought we had a good chance this year, but you know what? You just don't know about guys showing up and stuff. But it was very good. Very happy.
Yeah, your team's 8-1 in the playoffs. How did what do you attribute that to? What is your greatest strength so far?
I think just it's a group of obviously our defense is strong this year, but I think it's I just think it's the team has really come together as a team, and just we're not everybody's contributing, playing 4 lines and 6D, and no injuries at all, 0 injuries.
Yeah, that's obviously a huge bonus. Is there any one player that stood out that's really surprised you this year?
Not surprised me, but it was nice. It was nice. Quentin Bruce and Rigney, getting those young guys, Graham, the 2 Grahams, those young guys brought a lot to the table. And that really helped. And then picking up Schwint as a defenseman, Van Dyke back. It's just a combination of everything just fell together, and everybody we picked up has been a big part of our success. And then our veterans like Coxey and Tyler Nixon's really stepped his game back up, and Brown has had a great year. And it's almost like as a GM, you're waiting for something to go wrong because everything's gone right.
Sure. No, I get that. Like, would you say the recipe in this kind of a league is about all the pieces kind of fitting together to form a formidable unit?
Oh, I think that this league, you have to have 4 lines deep, and then you need to have systems, and you need to be consistent. Like you sleep for a weekend, you lose 2 games, you could go from second to fifth. Everybody was so tight. A couple of teams got off to a slow start. Like, you know, it could even been different against Port Elgin. Got off to a slow start, then they come on strong, and then Tilsonburg got off to a slow start. Clinton's a team in a different class. I don't know. They seem to be. They're a pretty strong team, but you know, we're going to give them everything we got. Hopefully, we can make it a good series. But you look on paper, you look at them, they shouldn't even be like. They got 12 guys that played OHL or better.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they're pretty strong. But you know what? We have a lot of confidence in our room right now, and like if I never would have bet in 100 years we would have beat Port Elgin 4 straight or Ripley 4-1. Like there's no way. I thought I had them both penciled in for 6 and 7 game series, as it could go either way.
Sure. Like, have you been surprised, I guess, at how the series have worked out across the board?
I to be honest, I have. And a lot of our success, I think, is no injuries. Like, you know, some of the other teams have had some injuries and stuff, and we've had 0. Like, my biggest problem is, who do I sit? I got to sit 5 guys a night. Who do you sit? Well,
right.
5 of those guys could be in the lineup.
Right. And they could be producers for you too.
Oh, it's hard because whenever one guy's out, another guy comes in. Like then, you know, it's like, okay, do I put the other guy back in? Like, it's making the coach's job very difficult, because, you know, now you try to find a reason. Okay, why do I keep this guy in, or why do it becomes like, even Johnny said, he says, I've never ever had this where I have the availability of 25 guys every night. He said it's my most difficult decisions right now, who to put in and who not to.
Is that the danger, though, is that you could be messing with any sort of chemistry that you may have on that given night?
That's the problem. You got something going good, and you just you know, it's so simple. You change a couple of guys in the lineup, and it changes the style of the game and stuff. And you could, you know, when you got something rolling, you hate to try to change it. So, but no, it's been a really rewarding year, just even to be part of it. Like, it's been, my biggest part was before last year was phoning everybody Friday afternoon, are you coming tonight, so we could get enough for 3 games. So now it's like, you got to phone them and say, you know what, you're not dressing tonight. And that's hard when everybody's giving the same effort. Guys are showing up to practice, and like, it's a good thing. So, and at the end of the day, I tried to preach last year, this is the results you'd have if everybody shows up and everybody buys in.
Right.
But
yeah, like, I mean, it certainly does make it easier when all guys are on board and when they show that willingness and that heart to compete on any given night. Am I right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And so all these young guys they don't know any different. Like, I think that was the reason we beat Port Elgin too, is I've had 8 guys or 10 guys in the lineup that never played Port Elgin, so it wasn't like, no, they didn't know that, you know, they had our number.
Right.
Oh, it made it a lot easier. They weren't intimidated as much, eh?
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying.
But and I think we just going to practice. The guys there's no such thing saying you're putting a senior hockey player into shape, but they're conditioned, or they're on the ice, so they're touching the puck, their timing, everything's just a little bit better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand what you're saying. I guess, yeah. So looking forward then to this series, Durham versus Clinton, what is your expectation of how this series plays out?
Well, I honestly hope we can beat them. We're going to have to play what we call flawless hockey. We're not going to be able to I watched Clinton play. You can't make a mistake. So it's going to be, but we're on a roll right now, and the guys are buying in. Like, anything can happen. And last time Durham won it in 2005, Aurora was the best team by far on paper. We weren't even supposed to win a game.
Right.
And we upset them and won the series. So, you know, I'm just hoping the momentum can carry, and again, the kids can believe in themselves. But anyway, I'm happy with where we are now. So I would love to see a 6 or 7 game series, win or lose. That would be really satisfying. But we played Clinton this year, but we didn't have Tom Longman in the lineup. We didn't have Schwint in the lineup, and we were missing 3 or 4 players, like key players that I think will give us at least a chance to be competitive.
Right.
And our goaltending's been great. Scotland's played, and Scott Couglin's just waiting for the opportunity. So I'm happy that way.
Well, perfect. You know what? And as a follower of this league for the duration of this season, there's no doubt that you couldn't have 2 better teams on paper going up against one another. So thank you very much for doing this, Don. We really appreciate it, and best of luck in the series.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Mr. Tremble for doing the interview for us and with us, and we hope to have him back on throughout the series if possible. So, like I said, it should be a phenomenal series. Looking now, though, at the Single A final that features the Petrolia Squires and the Tavistock Royals. That series has Petrolia out in front 3-1 through 4 games of the series. Petrolia taking Game 1 6-3, Tavistock coming back in Game 2 3-2. Game number 3 saw Petrolia win 6-3, and then game number 4 saw the Petrolia Squires win 4-3 in the overtime frame to take a commanding 3-1 series lead. Game 5 will now go Friday, March the 16th in Petrolia. That's an 8:30 start. Game 6 is slated for Saturday, March the 17th in Tavistock at 7:30 if necessary. And game number 7 will go Sunday, March the 18th in Petrolia at 7:30 again if necessary. So yeah, those are our big matchups coming up in the WOAA this upcoming week. Petrolia and Tavistock, game number 5, Friday, March the 16th, 8:30. Petrolia leads the series 3-1. With a win, they will seal the A championship for the WOAA Senior AA Men's League. And again, as mentioned, the Durham Thundercats, the number 3 seed, are at the Clinton Radars for game 1 of the AA Final Championship. Game 1, like I said, will go Friday, March the 16th at 8:30 in Clinton. It should be a dandy. These 2 teams are fantastic. They match up really well. And Durham, like I said, like Don Tremble said, they're going to need to play flawless hockey if they have any chance of knocking off the Clinton Radars. It's going to be a fantastic series. If you're in Clinton, get to these games. If you're in Durham, get to these games because they will be fantastic. It's always a good time at the AA Senior AA Men's League hockey. It's just fantastic, and it's highly recommended for sure. That is all right now for the WOAA report for this week's episode of TST. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back. You're watching TST Total Sports Talk. Andrew Rogers here, your host. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you're enjoying the episode thus far. We've now reached a point in the program where we want to talk about the Ontario Hockey League and the Owen Sound Attack. The Attack, they had a perfect week last week. They went 3 for 3. We're going to start with your game recaps from this past week. We start at the Barrie Molson Center in Barrie between the Owen Sound Attack and the Barrie Colts. The Attack coming out on top 6-5, and this one was the final. Matt Guzda stopped 13 of 13 in relief to get the win. Olivier Lafreniere started, but would be pulled after allowing 5 goals on 19 shots. Guzda come on, stopped 13 of 13 along the way to get the win, while Kai Edmonds of the Barrie Colts suffered the loss He allowed all 6 goals on 45 shots, stopping 39. The Owen Sound attack improved their record to 33-22, 3-5 on the year, while the Barrie Colts fall to 39-21, 3-1 on the season. Scoring for your Owen Sound attack was Marcus Phillips with 2. He also had an assist, giving him 10 on the season. Ethan Zapula added a goal and 3 assists for a 4-point night. It was his 16th of the season. Kevin Hancock would add his 24th, Alan Lethargic with his 18th, and Aiden Dudas with his 29th. Scoring for the Barrie Colts saw a 4-point night from Dmitry Sokolov. That was his 45th and 46th on the season, while Andrei Svechnikov added his 36th and 37th. He also added an assist for a 3-point night. Scoring the other tally for the Barrie Colts was Jason Wilms, his 25th. Tyler Tucker and Christopher Cameron added assists for the Barrie Colts. The Owen Sound attack winning in this one 6-5, the final in overtime. Moving on, the Owen Sound attack would then continue their week with a visit from the Saginaw Spirit at the Bayshore in Owen Sound. Attack winning this one handedly. 5-0 was the final over the Spirit. Attack improving to 34-22, 3-5 on the season. Matt Guzda stopping 16 of 16 for the shutout, while Evan Cormier of the Spirit stopped 19 of 23 for the loss. He was pulled in favor of Cameron Lamore for the third period. He stopped 10 of 11 the rest of the way. Scoring was five different goal scorers for the Owen Sound attack in this one. Nick Suzuki with his 35th, Maxime Sushko with his 30th, Ethan Zapula with his 17th, Brett McKenzie with his 17th, and Alan Lethargic with his 19th. Attack winning handily, like I said, 5-0. They improved to 34-22, 3-5 on the year, while the Spirit fall to 29-27, 8-0 on the season. Attack would then welcome in the number 1 seeded Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in the Ontario Hockey League to the Bayshore for a 2 p.m. matinee affair this past Sunday at the Bayshore. Attack coming out on top unbelievably in this one, the final 6-5 in the shootout. The Attack led at 1.5-2 and let a 3-goal lead slip away, but were ultimately able to prevail over the league's top team in a shootout. The Attack improving to 35-22, 3-5 on the year, while the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds suffer their third shootout loss of the year. They are 53-7, 2-3 on the season. Olivier Lafreniere started for the Attack. He stopped 28 of 35 for the victory, while Matt Villalta stopped 38 of 43 in the loss. Scoring for your Owen Sound attack was Brett McKenzie with 2, giving him 19 on the season. Nick Suzuki had a 2-point night with a goal and an assist. It was his 36th of the season. Aiden Dudas added his 30th, and Jonah Gadjevic with his 24th. Ethan Zapula added an assist for the attack. Scoring for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds was Morgan Frost. He added 2 to give him 40 on the season. Connor Timmons added a goal and an assist for 7th on the season. Rasmus Sandin with his 11th, and Keegan Houdshell with his 16th. Boris Kachuk added 2 assists as well as Taylor Radish. In the shootout portion, the skills competition of the game, Nick Suzuki, Maxime Sushko, and Jonah Gadjevic shot for the Owen Sound attack, with Sushko registering the only goal, while Taylor Radish, Jack Kopaka, and Morgan Frost were all stopped by Olivier Lafreniere to preserve the 6-5 victory for the Owen Sound attack in the shootout. Now we want to do something really special here. Last week we spoke with the Owen Sound Attack's PA announcer, Fred Wallace. He's also the play-by-play voice on the Owen Sound Attack broadcast on CFOS 560 about the season that's been and a look at the upcoming slate for the Owen Sound Attack and what lies ahead as they enter the postseason. So I guess what I wanted to ask you, I mean, it's an exciting time right now in the OHL for playoff time. It's right around the corner, right? I mean, I know the Attack struggled early on. There was a time there right before the turn of the new year that they were struggling to get a win, and then all of a sudden things seemed to click. Like, what would you say was the biggest reason for that?
2 things. They got healthier, probably the number 1 reason. Hancock was out from November 24th to probably January 7th, and I think they won 1 time during his absence. So that hurt. Gadjevic went off to the World Juniors and then didn't come back healthy. So he was gone for the better part of a month, and without them, I think Nick Suzuki, try as he might, struggled. So, and Durzee's been out since January the 9th. So I think those are 4 pretty big absences, and if we can get them all healthy, we're in good shape. The other thing is an upgrade in the goaltending.
Yep.
Bowman couldn't do the job. when the year started, and he elected to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Olivier was an upgrade and is now finding his way there, and Guzda is growing into the job. So down the line we're in great shape, but for right now and in the short term it was kind of tough.
Yeah, like the goalie tandem I find is one of the biggest strengths of the Owen Sound attack right now. I mean, you got to love Suzuki's production. It's been nothing short of stellar. So we know the first round matchup that the attack will face. It's the London Knights. They're 2 points back, 3 games to play for both teams. That home ice, how crucial is that for the attack to gain heading into that first round playoff series?
Well, it's what they want, and it's what London wants, quite obviously. And there's probably a legitimate edge to having home ice, but there's certainly a psychological edge, and there's no question there's a financial edge. So if you're a small business like the Owen Sound Attack, or a bigger than small business like the London Knights, home ice means tens of thousands of dollars. So that's where the real key is there. In terms of the series between the two, I would suggest that there would be a teeny tiny advantage, because London has proved they can win in Owen Sound, and I'm very confident now that the attack have 15 road wins, most of them coming since the 1st of February. I'm pretty confident that Owen Sound could win games in London. So in the overall picture, maybe not that big of a deal, but financially, that's a big deal, and that's what both teams want.
For sure. So the attack went 3 for 3 last week with a couple of big wins against some strong teams in the Barrie Colts and the Sioux Greyhounds on Sunday at the Bay Shore. How big are those wins against playoff contending teams like that, not to mention Saginaw? How big are those wins heading into the postseason for this attack team?
Well, I think it's pretty big. If you go down the Western Conference, Owen Sound has beaten the Sioux Greyhounds, where most teams don't in any way, shape, or form. Granted, right. It was a shootout, but really, Andrew, I think you saw that game, and Owen Sound should have won it 5-2, in my opinion, and they ended up winning in a shootout. So they've beaten the Sioux. They're 4-4 overall against Kitchener, and I know the dynamics of both teams have changed, but I think Owen Sound will be confident against Kitchener. They've lost in a shootout and lost in overtime to Sarnia in their 3 meetings. They're 0 for 3, but 2 of them went to extra time. So right down the list, Owen Sound won't be scared of anybody on our side of the fence. We're 2-0 against Hamilton. When healthy, we showed that we could beat the Barrie Colts. So I think Owen Sound is legitimately a contender if all things fall their way.
Right, perfect. And finally, lastly, I guess, what can you attest to Todd Gill in his first season with the Owen Sound Attack? How big of an influence has he been on this team?
Well, one, he inherited a good team. Ryan McGill did not necessarily inherit a good team and a good group of guys. And it took Ryan certainly half a year of basically just clawing and scratching and pulling and altering to get any sort of direction. And they went all the way, to a great series against London in Ryan's first year. And then Ryan upgraded last year, set a franchise record. So Todd Gill inherits what should have been a good team this year. And Todd probably thought everybody was juiced when they told him that, because we did not start well. We did not play well. We did not achieve well, until probably most recently. So I think if you're going to attribute this to Todd Gill, and I think there's every reason that you should, you would attribute it to a guy who is professional, totally professional, and did not panic when things were bad, didn't want massive alterations. He just stayed on it. And I think that's the voice of experience.
Absolutely. No, I think I can speak for all Attack fans when we say we're jacked for the playoffs. Thanks, Freddie, for doing this. We really appreciate your time, and best of luck going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and all the best to you.
Again, we want to thank Fred for his time and for being a part of TST. Thank you, Fred, and we hope to speak with him again as the playoffs continue on. Looking now at your scoring leaders for your Owen Sound Attack, Nick Suzuki leads the way as he's done for the most part of the season. 36 goals, 57 assists for the Vegas Knights prospect. He has 93 points on the season. Kevin Hancock slides in at number 2. 24 and 39 for 63 points, good for the number 2 spot. Aiden Dudas has 30 and 30, good for 60 points on the year, while Maxime Sushko has 30 and 25. The Flyers prospect has 55 points in the season so far. Ethan Zapula slots in at number 5, 17 goals, 33 assists, good for 50 points. Sean Dursey, Brett McKenzie, Jonah Gadjevich, Alan Lethargic, and Marcus Phillips round out your top 10 scoring leaders for your Owen Sound Attack, with 3 games remaining on the season. Your scoring leaders in the Ontario Hockey League overall points leaders. Aaron Luchuk continues to lead the way. He has a 3-point advantage over Morgan Frost. Aaron Luchuk, 47 goals, 63 assists, good for 110 points for the Barrie Colts. Morgan Frost, as mentioned, slots in at number 2. He has 40 goals and 67 assists for 107 points for the number 1 Sioux Greyhounds. Jordan Kyrou comes in at number 3 for the Sarnia Sting, 37 goals, 69 assists, good for 106 points. Owen Sound's Nick Suzuki comes in at number 4, 36 and 57, good for 93. While Niagara Ice Dogs forward Sam Militic comes in at number 5. Formerly of the London Knights, he has 36 goals and 55 assists, good for 91 points. Dmitry Sokolov of the Barrie Colts, Adam Mascarin of the Kitchener Rangers, Jason Robertson of the Kingston Frontenacs, Evan Bouchard of the London Knights, and Boris Kachuk of the Sioux Greyhounds round out your top 10 scoring leaders for the Ontario Hockey League. Want to take a look now at your standings across the Ontario Hockey League heading into the final week of the regular season. The Hamilton Bulldogs will finish in the number 1 spot. They have 90 points on the year, 42, 18, 3 and 3. The Barrie Colts will undoubtedly finish number 2. They have 84 points. They are 6 behind the Bulldogs with the last week on the schedule. 40 wins, 21 losses, and 3 and 1 to go with that for 84 points. They're in the number 2 spot. The Kingston Frontenacs come in at number 3. They have 79 points. 5 better than Niagara Ice Dogs at number 4 with 74. Oshawa Generals at 71 come in at number 5. The North Bay Battalion at 68 points are at number 6. The Mississauga Steelheads and the Ottawa 67s tied for 65, with the Steelheads at number 7 and the 67s at 8. You got Peterborough at 50 points and Sudbury at 43 on the outside, not being able to get any admission into the playoffs for the Ontario Hockey League. Switching over to the Western Conference standings, you have the number 1 Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. They are the OHL champions, the OHL points champions on the season. They have 53 wins, 7 losses. There's 53, 7, 2, and 3 on the year, good for 111 points. The Kitchener Rangers won the Midwest Championship for the first time since 2008, as mentioned. The Kitchener Rangers finishing they are 43, 22 and 0 on the year, good for 88 points. They will finish in the 2nd spot. The Sarnia Sting come in at number 3. They will finish there, 44, 16, 4 and 1 for the Sting. They have 93 points. The 4th place are the London Knights. They have 80 points on the year. They are 38, 23, 2 and 2 on the year. Your Owen Sound Attack slot in at number 5. They have 35 wins, 22 losses. They are 35, 22, 3 and 5, good for 78 points. They trail the Knights by 2 points. Then you have the logjam at the bottom. You have the 6, 7, and 8 seeds. The Windsor Spitfires, Saginaw Spirit, and the Guelph Storm slotting 6, 7, and 8 right now. The only playoff series that is a guaranteed right now is the London Knights and the Owen Sound Attack at the number 4 and the number 5 spot, as they cannot advance or fall from those 2 positions. The Attack come in. They both have 3 games remaining. The Attack 2 points behind the London Knights, looking for home ice advantage in the first round. As you can see right now, the OHL playoff bracket suits like this right now. Heading into the final week, you have the Sioux Greyhounds against the Guelph Storm, London Knights against the Owen Sound Attack. The Sarnia Sting will go up against the Windsor Spitfires, and the Kitchener Rangers against the Saginaw Spirit. Over in the East, you have the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Ottawa 67s, Niagara Ice Dogs and the Oshawa Generals, Kingston Frontenacs and the North Bay Battalion, and the Barrie Colts and the Mississauga Steelheads. Now, one of the tougher opponents that the Owen Sound Attack may have to face in the potential for the second round could be the Kitchener Rangers. And who better to tell us about the Rangers and how they've been doing this season and give us an idea of how they stack up when it comes to entering the postseason than Mike Farwell, the play-by-play man on of the voice of the Kitchener Rangers on 570 News. We spoke to Mike this past week.
No, that's really exciting, man. I guess from with you being the play-by-play, the voice, you're around the Rangers all the time. Is it a surprise to you that you guys won the Midwest?
It's funny. No is the answer. But what was surprising to me is that they hadn't won another division since 2008. And it shouldn't surprise me because I've been with the team all that time. But I had kind of forgotten that division championships weren't part of the run. They had a couple of runs to the conference championship in the playoffs, but they didn't go into those playoffs as the division winner. So it was kind of strange when they won the division, and I looked back at the stats and realized, oh man, they haven't won the division in 10 years. That was a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, that's a long time in between division championships for sure. What would you chalk up to the main reason that you guys can call yourself champions of the Midwest?
You know, I hate to take away from what the Rangers have accomplished, but part of the reason is because Owen Sound hasn't competed, I don't believe, the way they were expected to compete. And if that's the absence of Michael McNiven or the injuries that they had to deal with, I would say that's got something to do with it. Having said that, on the Rangers side, this team has been getting some big-time performances from its biggest players, and I think Mike McKenzie did a masterful job at the trade deadline to add exactly the pieces that this team needed. Get a power forward, an elite scorer like Logan Brown. He'd already added Cole Sherwood, put Austin McEnany on the back end, get a guy like Giovanni Smith, who's, you know, tougher than rat shit, as a former co-host of mine would say, and add that intimidation element to the team. And you put those pieces onto a team that was already as good as the Rangers, and I think that tells you how they got there.
Yeah, no, I agree, and they were some masterful moves, and Giovanni Smith is hard as nails, yeah, for sure, 100%. Cole Sherwood's been very good for you guys, and I mean, Adam Mascaren's been masterful, to say the least, and you've gotten really good goaltending. What's been, like, what's that, how nice has that been, getting the good goaltending on a nightly basis?
Well, the interesting thing about the goaltending situation is that coming into this season, all of the question marks were around Luko Pilka. And I remember saying back last summer that this Rangers team is going to be competitive, or only as competitive as Luko Pilka is healthy. And of course, the Rangers didn't get a single game out of Opilka this year because he opted for another hip surgery, and his junior career was pretty much done. The Rangers cut ties with him just after Christmas. So you bring in a guy from the Quebec League in Anthony Dumont-Bouchard, who got waived out of the queue, picked up by Barrie for a 14th rounder, and then the Rangers acquired him from the Barrie Colts. And all of a sudden he starts the season like a house on fire, and you think, oh, the goaltending situation is solved, even without Luko Pilka. And then Dumont-Bouchard gets hurt, and you start platooning Luke Richardson and Chris McGonigal, and Mario Kalina becomes available, who's another great story. He started out the season in Windsor. They say to him, you know what, there's no room for you here. We're going to ride Mikey DiPietro. Best of luck. And Kalina ends up in the OUA playing for the Ryerson Rams until Sudbury calls him. He says, I want to get back into the O. The Kitchener Rangers actually faced Mario Kalina when they played up in Sudbury earlier in the season. And then the deadline comes, and Mike McKenzie sends an 8th rounder Sudbury's way. Kalina comes to Kitchener, wins his first 10 starts. I mean, it's been kind of goofy, but they've been getting great performances from unexpected places.
And sometimes that's just the recipe for wins. Am I right, Mike?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. And listen, teams live and die with goaltending. And if you get, with the team the Rangers have this year, all you really need is good goaltending. You don't need exceptional goaltending. You need good goaltending. The guy that's going to make the reliable saves for you, and the offense is going to take care of the rest.
Absolutely. You're right. 100% I agree with you. So we have one matchup set in the Western Conference so far. That's Owen Sound in London. They'll meet in the first round no matter what. Kitchener's got a slew of options that they can face in the first round between Saginaw, Windsor, and Guelph. Out of those three teams, is there a preference for the Rangers looking forward to the first series?
Well, the team will never admit it. I'm sure that they have a preference, but I wouldn't know what that is. They've talked about scouting all of the potential first-round opponents since the trade deadline. So they've taken a good look at each of the teams you just mentioned in Windsor, Saginaw, and Guelph. What's interesting is the Rangers have swept the season series versus Saginaw. They've got 2 games still to go versus Guelph, but they've won 5 of the 6 so far. And then they split with Windsor 2-2 in the season series during the regular season. So if you look at just that, you'd say, hey, let's take Saginaw as a first-round opponent because that's a team that you beat every time you played them this year. The difficulty there is that it's a bit of a longer trip, and I think this Ranger team that's going to be hoping for a longer run this year would rather save the miles early on, and Guelph would be a godsend that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, they're a great rivalry. Like, is there danger though in looking at a team saying, well, we've swept them all year, we should be able to roll them? Is that something a team could fall into a trap situation?
Absolutely. And I think no matter which team the Rangers face in the first round, they're going to be the favorites, which is a new position for them, right? Last year versus the Owen Sound Attack, they were underdogs. They won one game, knocked out in 5. The year before that, they were favorites, but it was, what did they do? I think was it 4-5 or 3-6 with Windsor that year? But either way, they did what they had to do, went out and won it in 5, but then went into the second round versus London and were underdogs again. So this is a little bit of a different situation for Kitchener. They led the Midwest Division since essentially October, clinched it, just over a week ago. So they're going to be the favorites in the first round, and I think they've got to make sure they take any opponent they're facing with the proper outlook. Yeah,
and again, you try not to look too far ahead here, Mike, and I hate to play devil's advocate, but that's kind of what I want to do here. Should the Rangers at the 2 spot, it's a nice spot to be in, don't get me wrong, but in a second round matchup, the likelihood that you'll draw Sarnia is very possible. Like, what does that match, forecasting that matchup, is that one that favors Kitchener, or is that a heavy underdog there?
Well, again, you have to ask yourself if the season series matters at all. And if it does, the Rangers are 3-0 versus Sarnia in the regular season. One more game to come this week. All I can say about the potential of that matchup is, can we please start it right now? Because we've seen the Sarnia Sting play the Kitchener Rangers twice in the past week, and both games were nasty. They were skillful. They were exciting. Take your pick. It's everything the league would want, I think, from a playoff series.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, what's better than juicy matchups all around? You're right. Well, Mike, we appreciate you taking time to talk about the Rangers and the Ontario Hockey League, and we can't wait for playoffs. They're only 3 games away for most teams, but they all wrap this weekend. Thanks, Mike, for doing this, and we'll talk soon.
Anytime, Andrew. Thanks for asking.
Again, we want to thank Mike Farwell for joining TST, and we hope to have him on again as the playoffs continue. It's always good to have the voice of a fellow team in the running, as the Kitchener Rangers are. They've had an unbelievable year thus far, and they look to make some noise in this upcoming postseason. Speaking of upcoming, we got the Owen Sound Attack's final 3 games of the season. It starts Wednesday, March the 14th. They are at the Flint Firebirds at the Dort Federal Event Center in Flint, Michigan. That's a 7 p.m. puck drop against the Flint Firebirds and your Owen Sound Attack. They follow that up the following evening, Thursday, March the 15th. It's a 7:05 puck drop at the WFCU Center in Windsor, Ontario. It's the Attack and the Windsor Spitfires on Thursday. And then finally, the Owen Sound Attack will wrap their season and wrap their home schedule in the regular season with a visit from the Sarnia Sting into the Harry Lumley Bayshore in Owen Sound. That is a 7:30 puck drop, Saturday, March the 17th. That has been all for your Ontario Hockey League report and your Owen Sound Attack report. We'll be right back after this. Coming up is the Toronto Maple Leafs report on the other side of the break. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers, the host of TST, with you here. Thank you very much for joining me on this 20th episode now of Season 2 TST. We're reached the point in the program now where we want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs had one game this past week. It's kind of strange, I know, one game at this point in the season where there are only a few games remaining, obviously, but there are a lot of teams that have not played as many games as the Toronto Maple Leafs, so they need to make up those games, like the Boston Bruins, for example, who are they're currently in a stretch of playing 31 games in 16 nights. It's just treacherous for them, but they keep on winning. I don't know how they do it, but they keep on winning. A recipe for winning, I guess. Toronto Maple Leafs, like I said, one game this past week, and it came against the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Maple Leafs and the Pittsburgh Penguins from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto this past Saturday. Maple Leafs coming out on top, 5-2. was the final over the defending Stanley Cup champions Maple Leafs, improving to 40-22-7 on the season, while the Pittsburgh Penguins fall to 39-26-4 on the year. Frederik Andersen was very sharp in the game. He stopped 38 of 40 for the victory for the Maple Leafs, while goaltender Tristan Jarry started for the Pittsburgh Penguins, stopping only 12 on 16 shots before being replaced by Casey DeSmith at the beginning of the third period to go the rest of the way. DeSmith stopping 9 of 9 the rest of the way. Scoring for your Toronto Maple Leafs, Nazem Kadri had 2 to give him 26 on the year. Mitch Marner had his 19th he also added an assist. Kasperi Kapanen had his 5th of the year as a single there, and Patrick Marleau added his 21st. Morgan Rielly chipped in with 3 helpers for the Maple Leafs to pace them to victory. On the other side, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby added his 23rd, and Patrick Hornqvist, who just come off signing an extension with the Penguins, had his 19th. Evgeny Malkin, Jake Gensel, and Chris Letang added assists for the Penguins in the defeat. 5-2 was the final from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto. Looking now at your scoring leaders for your Toronto Maple Leafs after one game this past week, not much change here. Mitch Marner continues to lead the way due to the absence of Austin Matthews, most likely. Marner, 19 goals, 37 assists, good for 56 points. William Nylander's now pulled even with Matthews, 14 goals, 36 assists, good for 50 points. Austin Matthews, 28 and 22 for 50. Nazem Kadri has 26 and 21, good for 47. James Van Riemsdyk, 26 and 15, good for 41. Morgan Rielly, 6 and 35 for 41. Jake Gardner, 4 and 36 for 40. Patrick Marleau, 21 and 16 for 37. Tyler Bozak, 10 and 24 for 34. And Zach Hyman, 13 and 21 for 34 on the season. Looking now at your National Hockey League scoring leaders, Nikita Kucherov continues to lead. He has a slim 1-point advantage over Evgeny Malkin for first. Kucherov 34 and 54, good for 88. Evgeny Malkin 39 and 48, good for 87. Coming in at number 3 is Connor McDavid, 33 goals, 51 assists, good for 84 points. Claude Giroux 25 and 57 for 82. Nate McKinnon 32 and 49, good for 81. Johnny Gaudreau 21 and 58, good for 79. Steven Stamkos 27 and 52, good for 79. Phil Kessel 28 and 50 for 78. Sidney Crosby 23 and 53 for 76, and Blake Wheeler rounded out the top 10 for the Winnipeg Jets, 18 and 58, good for 76. Of note, not on the top 10 in scoring in terms of points, but we want to recognize Alexander Ovechkin for becoming into an exclusive club. He scored his 600th NHL goal. He's the 4th fastest to do that. And so congratulations to Ovi. All he does is like to score, and it was evident the other night when he had 2 to give him 600 in his illustrious career. Congratulations, Alexander Ovechkin. Looking now at your Atlantic standings, we want to take a look at your standings across the NHL. In the Atlantic, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning leading the way. They have a 6-point edge over the Boston Bruins. They have 100 points in the year, 48-17-4. Bruins 43-16-8 have 94 points, and the Toronto Maple Leafs at 40-22-7 have 87. Well in advantage over the Florida Panthers at number 4. No real threat there. 34-26-7 for them. They have 75 points. The Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, and Buffalo Sabres round out the rest of the Atlantic. As you can see there, the wild card will switch over now to the Metro and get you caught up on the wild card situation. The Washington Capitals lead the Metropolitan by a point over the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are 39-23-7, good for 85. The Penguins at 40-26-4 are 1 point behind at 84. Flyers at 81 points, 3 behind, 35-24-11. You have the Columbus Blue Jackets at 37-28-5. They have 79 points, and the New Jersey Devils at 35-26-8 have 78. The Carolina Hurricanes 30-28-11, 71 points and falling out of it. You have the Islanders at 30-29-10 at 70, and the Rangers at 31-32-7 at 69 points. As you can see there, the wild card Columbus leads the way with a 1-point advantage over the New Jersey Devils. They have 79 points in comparison to New Jersey's 78. Florida is still hanging in there. They are 3 points behind the Devils with 75 points. Carolina at 4 points behind them at 71. Islanders at 70. Rangers at 69. Switching over to the Central Division standings now, we got the Nashville Predators in the number 1 spot, 6 points better than the Winnipeg Jets. They are 44-14-10 on the year, good for 98. Winnipeg comes in at number 2, 41-18-10, good for 92. Minnesota at 39-23-7 at 85. Dallas at 38-25-6 at 82. Colorado 36-24-8 have 80. St. Louis at 27-5. They are at 79, and the disappointing Blackhawks 30-32-8, good for 68 points. You can see the wild card there. We switch over now to the Pacific Division. You have the Vegas Golden Knights well in control of the Pacific, 45-19-5, good for 95 points. The San Jose Sharks are number 2, 37-23-9, good for 83, 2 better than the LA Kings at 38-26-5. They have 81 points. The Anaheim Ducks at 34-24-12 have 80 points. Calgary Flames 34-26-10 are at number 5. They have 78. Then you have the Edmonton Oilers, Vancouver Canucks, and Arizona. The wild card situation looks like this. You got the Dallas Stars with a 2-point edge over the Colorado Avalanche and Los Angeles Kings. Colorado currently holding the number 2 wild card spot. You have the St. Louis Blues one behind at 79, Calgary at 78, and then Chicago a little further down in the conversation at 68 in the wild card. As you can see now by our playoff bracket, it gives you an idea of what would the first round matchups be if the playoffs started today. You have the Nashville Predators against the Colorado Avalanche, Winnipeg at Minnesota. You had the Vegas Golden Knights in Dallas, San Jose and the LA Kings on the west side, while on the east side you'd have Tampa and New Jersey, Boston, Toronto, Washington against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and a battle of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and Philly. So yes, nothing short of excitement all the way around the NHL these days as the Toronto Maple Leafs enter the last remaining 14 games in their season. It starts this Wednesday, March the 14th, 7 p.m. at the Air Canada Centre, where they welcome in the visiting Dallas Stars. Like I said, 7 p.m. puck drop there. They follow that up with a short little bus trip over to Buffalo, to the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. Well, they will play the Buffalo Sabres for the second time in a week. They also have 2 more after this against the Buffalo Sabres remaining in their season. This goes Thursday, March the 15th. Like I said, puck drop at 7 between the Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres. And then finally, they wrap their week upcoming with a visit from the Montreal Canadiens into the Air Canada Centre to take on the Maple Leafs. Saturday, March the 17th is a 7 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet. This has been all for your NHL report and your Toronto Maple Leafs report. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, I hope you're enjoying the show thus far. We've reached a point in the program now where we want to talk about the NBA and the National Basketball Association, and more specifically, the Toronto Raptors. And boy, how good have they been. They have just defied all the odds coming in that most pundits would have believed that they would have regressed after so many consecutive seasons of improvement, but they have done nothing but improve on what was to be believed as the unimprovable. They look good though, and they just continue to keep on winning, even when they got the league's top team come into the building, and they still go 4 for 4 this past week. All they do is win, and they have just keep on rolling. They had 4 games this past week. Let's get you recapped on those games. They started their week off with a visit to the Air Canada Centre from the Atlanta Hawks. Raptors controlling this one, 106-90 was the final. Raptors improving to 46-17 on the year, while the Atlanta Hawks fall to 20-45. DeMar DeRozan led the way for the Toronto Raptors. He had 25 points in the victory. Jonas Valanciunas, added 15 and 7 rebounds in the victory. CJ Miles with 14 and 7. Serge Ibaka with 10 and 6, and DeLon Wright with 10. John Collins and Kent Bazemore led the Atlanta Hawks in scoring on this night, 14 points apiece for them, but it was not enough. The very high-powered Toronto Raptors coming out victorious in this one by 16 points over the Atlanta Hawks. 106-90 was the final, as mentioned. Raptors continue their week with a visit to Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan, and boy, what a barn-burner game this was. Raptors coming out on top, 121-119 was the final in overtime. Raptors improving to 47-17. Pistons falling to 29-36. This game had a little bit of everything. The final stretch of moments there when DeMar dunks to put the Raptors up by 1 with seconds left on the clock. Blake Griffin comes back down the court and puts up a jump shot to tie it at 114, send it in overtime, and then DeMar in overtime draws in 4 defenders, finds Fred VanVleet, makes his first shot of the game. It's a 23-footer from the corner and drills it to give the Raptors a 121-119 victory with no time remaining. Just an unbelievable game and a real character victory for the Toronto Raptors. DeMar DeRozan led the way. He had 42 big points and 6 assists to lead the way, all scorers in the game. Norman Powell, 17 big points. It's his largest output in quite some time for the Toronto Raptors. Kyle Lowry added 15 points and 15 assists for the double-double. Also having a double-double was Jonas Valanciunas, 14 points, 11 boards, and CJ Miles chipped in with 8. Leading the Detroit Pistons in scoring was Blake Griffin with 31. And Andre Drummond had 10 points and 21 boards for the double-double. A very impressive night for him, but ultimately came up short. 121-119 was the final for the Raptors over the Detroit Pistons. Quite easily the game of the season thus far for the Toronto Raptors. They've welcomed in the Houston Rockets to the Air Canada Centre, a matchup of 1 versus 1. The Raptors coming out on top. 108-105 the victory. Raptors improving to 48-17 while the Rockets fall to 51-14 on the year. Kyle Lowry was massive on this night. He led all Toronto scorers with 30 points and 6 assists. DeMar with 23 and 7 boards. Valanciunas again with a double-double, 14 points, 10 boards. Serge Ibaka with 11.7 boards, and Fred VanVleet with 11 points and 5 assists to lead the Raptors in this one. James Harden again had a huge night for the Rockets, almost pacing them to victory as he pulled them evened up with the Raptors late by drilling very, very clutch threes. He is just an unbelievable player and a serious contender for MVP along with DeMar DeRozan. 40 points for James Harden, but ultimately they come up short. 108-105. Raptors over the Rockets from the ACC in Toronto. And then finally the Raptors proving their worth once again. They wrapped up their week with a visit to MSG at Madison Square Garden in New York against the New York Knicks and winning handily 132-106. Raptors scoring in figures. Raptors improving to 49-17 on the year while the Knicks fall to 24-43. Valanciunas leading the way for the Raptors, 17 points, 9 boards. Kyle Lowry with 16 and 7 assists on the night. Serge Ibaka with 14 and 7 boards. CJ Miles with 13 and DeLon Wright with 12. Tim Hardaway Jr. led all scorers in the game. He had 25, as well as Luke Cornett added 18 for the Knicks in a valiant effort, but ultimately they came up well short, falling to 24-43 on the year. Raptors, as I mentioned, improving to 49-17. As we look now at the Eastern Conference standings, the one and only team in the Eastern Conference to clinch a playoff spot is your Toronto Raptors. 49-17, they sit 3.5 games above the Boston Celtics for the number 1 spot. Boston at 46-21. They are in the second spot. The Indiana Pacers have surpassed the Cleveland Cavaliers, 39-28. They are 10.5 behind the Raptors. Cleveland 11 games back at 38-28. They are number 4. Washington at 38-29 are number 5. You got the 76ers in this number 6 spot at 36-29. Milwaukee at 36-31. They are number 7. And Miami Heat at 36-32. You have the Detroit Pistons 30-36. They are number 9. Charlotte Hornets at 29-38. No real threat. New York Knicks at 24-43, no real threat. You got the Bulls at 23-43, same there, and then the Brooklyn Nets at 21-46. Eliminated from postseason contention, the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks, no surprise there. Switching over to the Western Conference standings, you have the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. They've both clinched playoff spots for the Western Conference. Houston leads the conference, 53-14, 2 games better than the Golden State Warriors at 51-16. You have the Portland Trailblazers at 41-26. They are number 3. Oklahoma City Thunder, number 4 at 40-29. You have the New Orleans Pelicans, 38-28 at number 5. Timberwolves at number 6, 39-29. LA Clippers, 36-29. They are number 7. And the Utah Jazz, 37-30 at number 8. But they are tied with 2 other teams. The Denver Nuggets and the San Antonio Spurs, both at 37-30 as well. You have the LA Lakers at 30-36, trying to stick around, but it may be moot at this point. And then you have 4 teams in the West that are eliminated from postseason contention. That is the Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings, Phoenix Suns, and the Memphis Grizzlies. So yes, you know what? It was brought to my attention this past week that the Toronto Raptors, very realistically, on their path to potentially winning an NBA championship, could have to go through Milwaukee, Cleveland, Boston, and Houston. Not an easy task, but these Raptors are for real. They keep winning. All they do is win. And they prove their worth in big victories, especially against the top-ranked Houston Rockets. And they showed that they belong and hopefully earn some respect in the process. Let's look at the Raptors week upcoming here. The Raptors are into Brooklyn to take on the Brooklyn Nets at the Barclays Center Tuesday, March the 13th. That's a 7:30 tip-off in Brooklyn, New York to start their week. Then they follow that up with a matchup in Indiana against the Indiana Pacers. That goes Thursday, March the 15th. It's a 7 p.m. tip-off at the Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana. Next up then for the Toronto Raptors the following night, Friday, March the 16th, it's a 7:30 tip-off back at the ACC. They welcome in the Dallas Mavericks to take on your Toronto Raptors. Like I said, 7:30 tip-off there. And then finally, possibly the game of the week, I would say by a long shot, and possibly one of the tougher tests that the Toronto Raptors will face this season, is a visit from the Oklahoma City Thunder and Russ Westbrook. This matchup takes place Sunday, March the 18th. It's a 1 p.m. matinee start at the ACC in Toronto. Westbrook, just recently, this guy's a triple-double machine, and he's just unbelievable. He can single-handedly beat you, and the Raptors will have to bring out their full arsenal come Sunday to take on Oklahoma City and Russ Westbrook. It should be a dandy of a matchup, though, no question. That will about do it for the NBA report this week for the TST Total Sports Talk. We'll be right back after this to talk golf, and we also have a very neat interview with someone who happens to know Corey Connors quite well. We'll be right back. Stick around for that. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers, the host of TST, here for you. Hope you're enjoying the show thus far. I'm certainly enjoying giving it to you. So thank you, and continue to stick around week after week for more episodes of TST Total Sports Talk. Want to switch things up on the program a little bit and add a segment on golf. You know why there's reason to celebrate golf? Because a Canadian, not Adam Hadwin, a Canadian, actually had a legitimate shot at winning this past weekend on the PGA Tour at the Valspar Championship, the final round. Corey Connors of Listowel, Ontario, led the first 3 rounds of the tournament and was going into the final round, the leader, in the clubhouse, being chased by none other than Tiger Woods, if you can believe it. And unfortunately, though, however, the final round would not go the way Corey Connors envisioned. As you can see here by our leaderboard, Paul Casey shot a 6-under 65 to win the tournament at a score of -10, one better than Patrick Reed, who finished at -9 after shooting a 3-under 68 in the final round. Tiger Woods shooting a 1-under 70 to finish at 1 shot behind as well. Tiger drained a 44-footer on 17 to bring him within 1, and then left a putt short on 18 to come up just short of the victory at Innisbrook Resort in Palm Harbor, Florida, at the tournament. Just a beautiful golf course. Finishing in a tie for second was Tiger. Sergio Garcia shot a 6-under also on Sunday. He would finish 4th at -8. Justin Rose had a share of the lead there at one point, but he shot a 1/72 to finish 3 shots behind at -7, tied with Roy Sabatini, who shot a 269, finished at -7. Jim Furyk shot a 66, -5 under par to finish the tournament at -6. He was 4 shots behind. So speaking of Corey Connors from Listowel, Ontario, he had the lead at -9 going into the final round, and unfortunately, He could not make the putts when he needed to. He shot a 6-over 77 to finish 7 shots behind Paul Casey in the final round of the Valspar Championship. Interesting note about this, he would have been the first Canadian to win on the tour since Adam Hadwin won the 2017 Valspar Championship. It was an incredible showing, though, for Corey Conners. There had been a lot of rumblings at the beginning of 2018 that said, well, which Canadian golfer is going to come and burst onto the scene and make a huge impact? Or is it going to be somebody who is already on the tour? Is it going to be somebody new? And the consensus seemed to be Corey Conners, and I think a lot of people really found out why this past week. You know what, and you got to be impressed with what the kid's done. And you know what, I can always appreciate local talent going out onto the big stage and proving their worth with the big shots. And you know what, he definitely proved that he belongs, and he should be a force to be reckoned with in the 2018 PGA Tour season. Now, so I had to think, well, who might be able to give me some insight besides Mr. Corey Conners? Because I mean, I'm not that exclusive. I'm not that well known to be able to get him on the phone, ring a ding ding. However, being from Fordwich, I did happen to ring down to Listowel Golf Club and talk to Brenden Parsons, the director of operations of the Listowel Golf Club, who happened to know Corey Conners quite well.
What really stood out for you? How impressed were you by him?
Many of the things that he always does well, he just did extremely well this week. He's always a tremendously straight striker of the golf ball, so he always has it in play. And a golf course that was as difficult as this was this week, and with the conditions being as lush in the rough and greens being as quick, you know, that's why he shone above everybody else, because he hits it so straight. What made the difference was first 3 days he putted better than I've seen him putt in a long time, and that's unfortunately what kind of let him down on Sunday. He played great on Sunday, not that you would know because of the coverage, but
right,
the putts just weren't going in. A lot of them he left several short. And then 10th hole, when he decided to give it a bit of a run and ended up hitting it by and missed the one coming back. So it was basically the putting that kind of let him down Sunday, but he still played quite well.
Yeah, like, you know, it was so cool just how he stole the headlines through the first 3 days. Like, people started talking that he could be the first wire-to-wire winner in some time, and like, they were drawing comparisons to how good he was, like, to the Adam Hadwins and the Mike Weirs of old. I guess, like, what would you say is the most impressive part of Corey's game?
Again, it's how he drives the golf ball so straight. He's able to get it in play more times than not. He's also he led the Web.com tour in greens hit and regulation, and right away that's going to put you at the cream is going to rise to the top when you're talking about those kind of stats.
Right on. Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there. So you're the director of operations at the Listowel Golf Club, so I'm assuming you've had quite a bit of exposure to Corey Conners throughout the years, because I'm imagining he played a lot of his golf growing up there.
Yep, he also worked for me for several years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he worked in the pro shop for me for years. Right
on. So I guess, like, when did you ever envision this for Corey? Was this always a dream of his to become a professional golfer?
When he started getting into the mix with the Ontario amateurs and the Canadian amateurs, and then when he made his foray into college golf, played very well at Kent State, got in the mix at the NCAA championships. You knew that he was a special player. The issue is how do you convert that into a PGA Tour career?
Right.
And even me who's seen him a lot, I'm still pleasantly surprised at how well he's playing, and not really surprised that he got there, but it is just so difficult to get to that level because there are so many good players. What stands out for him is he is so incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
That he is able to think his way around the golf course. He's a low key guy, a very very relaxed and quiet, humble.
Right.
So he's able to keep himself under control very well, and I think that's what really shone, especially on Saturday. Because Saturday, most guys would have folded up like a cheap tent.
Right.
He went out, put the pedal down, and played terrific.
Yeah, and like I can't even imagine what would have been going through his head knowing that the story with Tiger Woods and his return was creeping up to him ever so closely, and how he was able to handle all of that.
Oh, 100%. The atmosphere was a zoo. I've been to many events that Tiger's played in before. I've seen the crowds. I don't think I've ever seen anything like what I saw this weekend. It was that combined with the demographic and the level of consumption. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They had a lot of F&B things going on around the course. By the end of the round, it was getting a little hairy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. No, and I can't, like, when you watch on TV and when you're actually there, the difference is probably like, it's just impossible to imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, to try and watch Tiger play, you have to be 2 holes ahead of him at least. Otherwise, you're 10 or 12 deep, and I'm 6'3", and I have a tough time seeing over guys.
Fair enough.
It's kind of wild. He had the benefit of playing in the group behind Tiger, which was probably the best scenario.
Yeah, that must have been pretty cool.
Playing in the group ahead would be awful, because just as you're about to take a swing, guys are running past you to try and get ahead of the group to see Tiger come. So even though he didn't have the same crowds, he still the crowds around him playing in the final group, even though Tiger was ahead, were still huge. Huge.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine. And not to mention too, like when you watch on TV and you hear all the roars of the crowd when guys are lining up for shots, and you're thinking, man, these guys must be really close by when you're hearing the noise that loud.
Yeah, I was surprised. He made a couple putts, a couple decent length putts for par or whatever he happened to be playing for at the time. And just as he struck the ball, there'd be a Tiger roar go up, and I don't know how he does it, because most people would get distracted. He was able to play through it. It really didn't affect him.
Yeah,
which was impressive.
That is very impressive. Like I say, I couldn't imagine being in that type of situation. So I guess now the question then becomes, what is next for Corey Connors? Do you know much about kind of what he has in store next for an encore after this latest performance?
Well, because of his status on the PGA Tour, he still has to go through the process of qualifying through the priority rank. So every time they do a reshuffle, that priority number can change, and then that's the basis of what gets him into events. So he's not in Bay Hill this week because Bay Hill is an invitational.
Correct.
However, he is in the week after in Dominican, I believe. So because the Dominican's the same week as the match play, so he'll be in the field in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
And then after that, it'll all depend on where he falls on the list. Like, that's the reason he got in this week, because his priority number got him into the third alternate.
Okay.
And then when Kyle Stanley pulled out, then he was in. So he's in pretty good shape in terms of priority list.
Okay.
This definitely helped his finish now, because it puts him up quite a few spots on the FedEx Cup points.
Right.
But he has to take advantage of every time he plays.
Yeah, and if this past weekend is any indication, his future is so bright, and the sky's the limit. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. There's no doubt that he has the talent and the attitude and the makings of a PGA Tour winner. I think back to years ago when he was at Augusta, and his coach Derek Ingram, he said without question he has the kind of game that could win at a place like Augusta, because you have to drive it straight and you have to play well. So definitely the sky's the limit. He's shown he can do it.
Right on.
That's the strongest field I've seen in a regular tournament like that for ages, and he led it for 3 rounds.
Yeah, like just to be able to go in, perform like he did, hang with the big boys. It's so impressive all the way around. And to be frank, I feel like he really did steal the heart and the support of Canadians all over. So let's talk about Listowel, the Listowel Golf Club. What's in store for this season? What can you tell us about the golf club?
We're looking to get going here in the next couple of weeks. This year we're hoping for a good year of weather. Last year was a little wet, so we're very lucky. Obviously, we have a great 27-hole facility. We have a very strong membership base, and we're just looking forward to getting back going and getting people out. Having resided in Fordwich, I've played your golf course a couple of times, and I really do thoroughly enjoy it. What's the number for the pro shop if you want to book in tee times? Number's 519-291-2500, extension 1.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate you talking about Corey, and we expect good things from him. So thank you very much for doing this.
My pleasure.
So once again, want to thank Brenden for coming on to TST and giving us a little bit of insight into Corey Conners. And if you guys want, check out the Listowel Golf Club. I'm telling you, it is a fantastic golf course. I've played it multiple times, and I've really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful layout, a lot of really nice golf holes there, and it's a good time. Experienced or not, they have three different sets of 9, each ranging in level of difficulty. So like I say, that graphic there, 519-291-2500, extension 1 for tee times. They're taking them now, and they're undergoing rentals, so they'll have a nice little facelift on the club come this season. You want to check that out. 8380 Fairlane Road, RR number 1, Listowel, Ontario, N4W3G6, or go to listowelgolfclub.ca to find out more. We're going to take one more short break. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Andrew Rogers back with you for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for watching. I want to say finally, thank you very much. Hope you guys have enjoyed episode 20 of TST Total Sports Talk. Covered a lot on the show today. We did a lot of interviews, and I was really happy. I want to thank my guests, Durham Thundercat General Manager Don Tremble. I want to thank Fred Wallace of the Owen Sound Attack, Mike Farwell, Kitchener Rangers, play-by-play man there. And I want to thank Brenden Parsons for coming on to TST and talking about Corey Conners. Very excited to have all those guys on, and I want to thank you. I want to thank them for doing that for us. Commentators' clothing was made and purchased from Vistaprint.ca, TST Total Sports Talk. For any of your custom apparel needs, go to Vistaprint.ca and check them out. They're reasonably priced. They always have sales site-wide, so check them out. And they deliver really fast, actually, too, so that's very encouraging. Andrew Rogers signing off for another episode of TST, and we'll see you again next week. Take care, folks. Till then.